This is the Business of Social podcast powered by STN Digital. I'm your host, David Brickley. Each and every show, we talk to the experts. We talk about what's going on in our industry, marketing, social, digital, you name it. We talk about it. And this is yet another mini episode edition. As always, I bring in my producer, Will Kelly, to chat about all that's going on in our industry. Will, I got to tell you, it's always a pleasure.
I believe you just called me an industry expert too, so thank you for the compliment.
Let's be honest. I got my my Laker hoodie on. People are asking me why am I doing this when it's like 90 degrees outside during the summer, but my home here gets absolutely no direct sunlight. But I am very excited about the NBA season about to restart, as you are as well. We're both Laker fans. This is a day that we thought was not going to be here, so we are all pumped.
Yeah, I have my excuses locked and loaded if the Lakers lose for some reason, and if they win, I'm going to celebrate like they're the champions, like any other season.
Exactly.
So it's really a win-win.
If the Lakers don't win, it's because it's an asterisk, and obviously, but if they win, it's
exactly.
All right, man. So as always, we kind of jot down some different ideas and thoughts and industry news that we see throughout the week, and we'd like to break it all down in a quick little chat between you and I. So let's get started, man. What do we? As I always say, Will, what do we got?
Yeah, the first thing, nice to be back, by the way.
Always a pleasure.
The first thing is NBA, on the NBA topic, NBA bubble content, whether it's guys on Instagram Live, whether it's guys on Twitter, or Matisse Thybulle going full out, like production style YouTube channel. There's been some really great content coming. And I think from the players themselves, not even counting the team side of things, it's been really cool to see.
Yeah, Matisse Thybulle, I mean, first of all, what an amazing thing he's doing. And JaVale McGee's doing it, our backup center for the Lakers, and he's doing a really great job. And I don't know about you, but I was fascinated how this bubble was going to work. A lot of people on Twitter have been saying it's kind of funny. They're really creating the 2K neighborhood in real life. You get the barbershop popping up now.
I saw the barbershop being built today, I think.
Exactly. So it's I was just fascinated with how this bubble was going to work and how it was going to be. I mean, LeBron James called it feels like it's an AAU summer camp, but we're all grown adults at this point. But I was just kind of craving what that content would look like. And I didn't get that from ESPN or Bleacher or CBS Sports or Fox Sports or what have you inside the bubble. You got it from the players herself. And we've been talking about that for so many years now about, player-centric content and owning your message. But Matisse Thybulle, by the way, he's actually editing these videos as well. Very Casey Neistat-esque. And I know he's a big fan of Casey as well. So he got some inspiration from him. But just literally going through how they get tested in the mornings, to how they were quarantined when they first got into Florida, to their practices, to how they have to wear masks everywhere, to how they have to use the Mickey Mouse watch in every single room they go to. I don't know how much you've watched of both Matisse and JaVale, but it's I watch every single second of it. I can't get enough of it.
I think it's finally taken enough time for like the younger generation, someone with Matisse's skills, not only in basketball, but in editing, to be like, this is what people want. I think fans want more behind the scenes and in-depth content of like, here's what the plane looks like, and here's what the bus looks like, and here's how all these processes work. And I think he's done an absolutely tremendous job, not only capturing it, but also doing the editing and the production.
Fans have always been obsessed with peeling back the curtain of what happens behind the scenes, whether that's in entertainment and movies, of behind the scenes content, but in sports specifically, like, so what happens at practice? Like, how do you guys work out? What's the stretching routine look like? What are you eating? What do you do in your off time? And all those things are what fans always crave. And, for I think Matisse and JaVale, like, they probably don't have the hours dedicated to family or some of the stuff they would do normally at home. And they're literally sitting in their, in their hotel room most times, kind of really quarantining. So they have a little more time on their hands, but really amazing content. I think content that if I was ESPN, I think that's much better content to run a 20-minute episode of JaVale McGee and the bubble than anything else that they have going on right now other than live sports that may be happening. So I've been really, really impressed with it. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And this is really, again, I think how we've been talking about COVID, this whole quarantine lifestyle has really accelerated this digital revolution that we've always known, which is everybody's really capturing, not capturing, but they're ingesting content through social, through the lens of social, using your camera, using your phone. And that's how, someone like me, I've watched very little ESPN or read articles about the bubble, and almost all of it has came from pictures on Twitter or watching these two documentaries from Matisse and JaVale.
Did you ever, when you were playing basketball as a kid, did you ever go to like a sleepaway camp or like an overnight basketball camp? Because it reminds me of that.
The Sean Rooks Fontana sleepaway camp. You kidding me? Former Laker.
But yeah, I think even just to get away from social for a second, I think what these guys and what the NBA has done, which shouldn't be overlooked because it's a lot. I think it just seems like no matter who wins or loses, I think it's just amazing that they were able to pull this off. And it just seems like a ton of fun. These guys are fishing. They're getting drinks in the lobby. I think it was Quinn Cook or whatever put like a picture on his Instagram, and he was like dressed up head to toe. And someone was like, "Where are you going, man?" He said, "I'm going to get one drink in the lobby and come back to the room."
You could tell LeBron has like some deal with different sponsors or exclusive because like all of JaVale's content, there's no LeBron. You see Anthony Davis every once in a while. You see a lot of Quinn Cook, a lot of Alex Caruso, but you do not see a lick of LeBron James, and that's done on purpose. Like, hey, JaVale, you can do whatever you want, but don't you dare show LeBron.
I also think LeBron is like more or less a bubble wrap when he's not practicing. Like he has a private elevator to his room, and they cannot afford that,
Damian Lillard's suite. Damian Lillard's suite got unlocked. I think CJ McCollum was like wishing him a happy birthday and put a balloon outside his door, and you can tell it was a larger suite than what most of these guys have. And there was a report on Twitter where they actually showed you a 360 view of that room, and it has a full living room. It's like 1,000 square feet. So I'm guessing the All-Stars have the better digs, which, I don't blame them.
I wonder if that's something to do with their contract or whatever. But I think it was on Levitard's show, or I heard, I should say, if you slept in every single hotel at Disney World, it would take you 68 years. Every single room in every single hotel.
I'm amazed by, the first of all, I didn't really realize the wild world of sports or what have you, that campus was that huge. And then Disney World, I mean, it's a legitimate city with its own freeway system. Like it's a thing.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I think one of them start at the end of July, like the 31st or something like that.
July 30th.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm excited to see how the actual basketball portion of it unfolds. But
the reason I bring this up, and obviously you and I are both basketball and Laker fans, but the reason I bring this up is this bubble has to work for sports. And for us that work in this industry, that's really important to our careers and revenue and all those different things. If the NBA bubble does not work, which the great news is, it's worked flawlessly so far. They've caught Russell Westbrook before he can even get to Florida. They had a protocol in place to make sure guys tested negative twice before they even jumped on the plane. So they were able to have that 2-week period where they were able to, if anybody happened to have it, super innocently, of course, but if they had it, hang back, quarantine yourself, then we'll bring you into the bubble. And then two things I thought were really interesting is one player crossed the imaginary line to go pick up a Postmates or what have you. And they said, listen, man, you broke the rules, 10-day in quarantine. So I think no stone has been left unturned here. And kudos to the NBA for putting together a 190-page document of how they're going to do this. But it's every sport's looking at this. The NFL, college football, you name it, they're looking at what the NBA is doing because the NFL is not going to be able to produce a bubble like this. And if this bubble doesn't work with the NBA, it can't work with the NFL if they're flying all over the country. So far, so good. My fingers are crossed, but this is really important for our industry as a whole.
Yeah, I know the MLS has their bubble going on right now, which I'm sure is not as elaborate as the NBA at Disney World, but they're doing the same thing. And then the NHL is doing somewhat of a different, they're doing like 2 mini bubbles in Toronto and Edmonton, I believe, for West and East Conference. And then I don't know how they're going to do the playoffs whenever they meet up. But so yeah, everyone's trying their own version of a bubble. And I believe the NBA said like 2 hours ago that they've done 400 tests like last week and 0 came back positive.
That's amazing.
So far, so good.
And if you look at it, I mean, I'm not a doctor or anything, but you would think if you're testing the same 400 people every single day and you make sure they don't leave that area, I mean, the likelihood of them picking up COVID, the only way they can really get it is from an outsource, like a cook or a delivery person or what have you. But it seems like, I don't know really the data on that and how they figured that part out. But if everybody stays in the one location, doesn't leave, I would assume the likelihood of them getting it is really low. And then when the 6 teams get eliminated before they go into the playoffs, you're automatically going to have less teams and less players that even give you that chance. So less teams, less players equal less chance of getting it. And again, if they can finish this season, then this really gives a recipe for every single sport, at least like, all right, this works. Maybe if you start to expand it, it won't work. but at least this is a way you can pull it off if you so choose.
Yeah, and I mean, as crazy it is to say, what if next season they're going to have to do a portion of it at, in some type of bubble part 2 or something like that if we have a third wave, fourth wave, whatever. So far so good with them, and I'm glad. I mean, the logic is there. I agree. If you keep the people in and they're not positive, then it should be good for a month or so.
All right, we'll move on to, of course, 2020 has proved to be the year of course. And, every single major social network has had its own drama. Obviously, Facebook with the advertising boycott. And, a lot of these large brands like North Face and REI, and help me out here. There was 90, I think, Fortune 500 brands essentially that at least pulled media in July, and really trying to go after Facebook in terms of having them change their policies when it comes to freedom of speech and political speech and all those different things. But then right when you think that was kind of cooling down, TikTok, there was some talk from not the Attorney General, but from Donald Trump's camp that they may ban TikTok in the United States. And that scared a lot of marketers for a second there. And that still can be an issue, especially with the politics between China, and who knows if they use that as an excuse. And then Twitter gets hacked. President Obama, Elon Musk, some of the most influential people in the world are asking their followers to submit some money via Bitcoin. And we all know that's a recipe for disaster. So, by the way, like if you're going to do this elaborate scheme where they pulled it off pretty magically in terms of being in terms of these hackers, it just was a bad execution there at the end. You got the password, you got the people, and it was clearly a very spammy type of tweet, but who knows how much money. I don't know if you read up on that, if they actually got people to submit any Bitcoin, but
they did. I don't know the final numbers. I was reading about it or looking into it, and it said that the consensus was they did not play their cards correctly. Like they could have made a lot more money if they had gone about it a different way. But they're seeing a strategy.
And I guess from what Liz was telling us in our Monday team meeting is, these passwords were leaked via an internal Twitter Slack room. Mm-hmm. So that is just a recommendation for all of our clients and those listening. I know a lot of, hey, what's the password to this? And you just, you'll easily, innocently throw it against Slack. Well, there's ways for people hack into your Slack and they can get all the passwords you've ever sent to people. So it's a good industry tip. Stay away from that. Don't do that.
Well, I was thinking about it in real time. Like, man, how did they possibly manage to hack? Because Obama has to have some higher priority security than just your average Joe.
Yeah, they hacked into the admin Twitter account that can get into anybody's.
I saw that. I was like, that makes a lot more sense. But kudos to those hackers. It was a creative way of hacking everybody.
All right, Netflix subscribers. I mean, almost every business in America, maybe the world, has been hit really hard by COVID-19, and rightfully so, with these quarantines and people not being able to, losing their jobs and money being an issue, not being able to purchase the way they used to, not going out to movies, events, concerts, etc. We talked about Zoom a lot already on this program, where they went from 10 million active subscribers or users in the month of February to 200 million in the month of March or April. And Netflix is one of those companies, Will, that no surprise here, that they have actually really done well during COVID-19, during everything that's going on. So they increased 10 million subscribers globally in Q2, which is one of their records. Definitely the biggest addition of US members in a single quarter in many years. And I think just recently their stock went up 60%, I think, this year. So they're above Disney at this point. So not a lot of, no mistake here that Netflix has been doing well when people have been forced to stay inside and entertain themselves.
Yeah, and similar to Zoom, I give Netflix a lot of credit for, you're going to have people that just fall into your lap because of quarantine, but they've done an excellent job on social and rolling out programs at the right time. And like you have Space Force, you have like The Floor is Lava, you have, of course, Tiger King. I think Ozark was like the back half or maybe right before quarantine, but they've done a good job of keeping people entertained and also keeping them entertained on social and being, they just do a good job on all fronts, I think.
And I know for our staff,
to have that increase in subscribers, and not really drop the ball at all is extremely impressive.
And I know our staff for, the entire Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of people, including us, went and watched 13th, which is an amazing documentary that every human should watch, in my opinion, by Ava DuVernay. When They See Us, these different programs and documentaries that have been on Netflix for quite some time now, but people wanted to educate themselves, including myself, and really try to, absorb that content. And that I'm sure that's another helpful resource for Netflix that they were able to provide to people, which ultimately gave more value. But to your point, Netflix has about 60 original films and TV series due to release in July alone. So they haven't slowed down. The thing really about the entertainment industry that you and I both work in is a lot of these, shows and documentaries were already in the can, which is industry speak for they were already done and on ice and ready to be released. But since March, there really hasn't been any ability to produce anything other than what you and I are doing right now over a Zoom call. So, when is that going to catch up with the Netflixes, with the Disneys, with the ABCs, the NBCs, and the Foxes? Because at a certain point, they're going to run out of this stuff that's, on the shelf.
Yeah, and I'm sure they've had a lot of internal discussions of like, all right, we need to delay some of these because everywhere you read, like I saw the new Star Wars product, which is not Netflix, but they said that's going to be a smaller scale production due to COVID because it messed up their whole timeline. But going back to Netflix, I want to give them credit also for keeping all of their current content most popular. I think they have like that top 10 list now. It's easy just to say, oh yeah, we have all this great Black Lives Matter stuff. Go find it. No, they put it up there. They give you a quick breakdown. You can watch
they programmed literally really daily. Yeah.
People. Yeah. So yeah, I think, you ask anyone, I think Netflix is the king of streaming, and they certainly know how to handle all their subscribers and all their power.
Yeah, just to break that down. So Netflix stock is up 60% this year as one of the S&P's top performers. It recently surpassed Disney in market capitalization because Disney's been hit hard with ESPN and live sports, movie theaters, theme parks going down. So their market has gone down, or market capitalization has gone down, while Netflix has gone up. So yeah, there's certain industries and certain, companies that have been able to provide an immense value during, this time where a lot of us are, stuck at home and trying to be safe and social distance and all that. And Netflix is probably number one. Netflix and Zoom, I'm guessing, number 1 and 2 for being able to, capitalize is the wrong word, but definitely provide value during COVID-19. That being said, Will, those were the main topics. I think, again, I'm really following closely, the NBA, MLS, these different bubbles. I will say that I just read across my screen that Oklahoma recently tested all their student athletes and one person came back positive, which was, I think, a volleyball player or something of that nature. So I will say all those, cases are spiking and we have an issue with infections and hospitalization rates and those things, which is definitely concerning in a certain amount of states. I feel like the testing in terms of when different organizations and sports, I feel like they're taking that seriously, and I'm starting to see less. Clemson, I think the football team, like 37 of their football players tested positive. And you don't see these outrageous numbers. When the NBA first tested their players, I think it was 8%, and you just mentioned 0 out of 400 once they got them isolated. So it seems like we're learning, and it seems like, not to be selfish, but us that work in this industry, and this is our careers when it comes to sports and entertainment, that it feels like there's a way back to normalcy if you have a controlled protocol, a 100-page guide, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think the timing of it was lucky in a sense for like it kind of happened in the slower period on the sporting calendar, but there's also been a huge shift in the availability of tests, which I think has helped a lot. What are they testing for football? Like, are they just testing athletes who are on campus for the summertime? Because I feel like a lot of the students either aren't going back or aren't going back for athletics.
Well, I think NCAA allowed student athletes to go back in early July. And to your point, some universities, once the uptick started happening in these different states, said, listen, go back home. But some continued to let them stay there with their testing. I think the problem is the NBA can afford it, but I think every test costs like $100 on average. So if you're a smaller university, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially if you're testing your entire student athlete base for the next 6 months or so. So, that's going to be obviously a barrier of entry. But again, I think if we could all cross our fingers and the NBA bubble works out well and there's no stop to their season, then again, that could be a recipe for success there. And then hopefully we get closer to the vaccine, we learn more, the cases go down, and that's the thing. I hate to trivialize this, but listen, Americans at the end of the day are either 100% on or 100% off. If you open up bars, it's going back to normal. So unfortunately, we learned the hard way where, hey, bars are open, but be safe. No, it's just not going to work. And unfortunately, it's like an individualist country where people start to take it personally. It becomes political. But the data does show if you wear a mask, which I hope all of you are wearing your mask, that it simply avoids more contamination, which is what we're trying to all do as a society here.
I think the ultimate test for not only sports, but really like society in general is going to be baseball. They're playing like home games. They're traveling to different stadiums. Like, yeah, they realigned the divisions and whatnot, but you're going to have outside people, somehow getting in there that's not as secure as the NBA bubble.
Living at home.
If they're 3-4 weeks into the season and their tests, spike up, then they're going to have to go back to the drawing board on that. But I think that'll be kind of the biggest test in terms of live sports.
Yeah, because you're right. The NBA bubble is phase 1. Phase 2 is MLB, where they've tried to isolate the teams they play in maybe a couple states, but they're not flying across the country. Phase 3 becomes the NFL and even college football. I mean, even though it's a Pac-12, UCLA still has to fly up to Washington, right? Right. And these different conferences are so spread out that there's going to be a lot of that travel. But if you have a procedure where you test them, the second before they get on the plane, they're negative. They get on the plane. When they land, they test negative again. They stay quarantined. Hopefully, you can keep everything on the up and up. But it's going to be difficult. I think some sports are going to stumble more than others. But you hope that overall there's success there.
Well, if you have guys in the MLB and they have, they live with their wife or their family, or whatever, and they go to work or they drop their kids off somewhere, and then they come home and they interact. I mean, that opens up a can of worms. But yeah, I'm assuming they'll be as safe as possible. But football, I think, will definitely be, we've heard the least about their plan of any of the major sports in terms of fans in the stadium and travel plans.
As we record this, the NFL players are not happy, from Drew Brees to Khalil Mack to, major stars, Russell Wilson. They don't know how often they're going to get tested. They don't know the protocol. Again, the NBA's always had a good relationship with the NBA PA, and they kind of work in tandem together. The MLB doesn't do that. The NFL doesn't do that. And I think the NFL, there's so much money online that they'll figure it out, but they still haven't, treated their athletes fairly. I think they're opening up training camp at the end of the month, but Russell Wilson, who has a pregnant wife, doesn't know how often he's going to be tested, which is like ludicrous. Right. So all that stuff's going to be figured out.
Like tweet storm issue. They all use the same hashtag, and it was like the heavy hitters of the NFL with Mahomes, like all the way down to, mid and top level guys. So I think they're rightfully concerned of like, hey, I have a family and I have kids, and what are we going to be doing here?
And that's a calculated effort by the NFLPA, like, hey, everybody tweet today and let's make sure the NFL. But those are basic human rights. Like, hey, if you're going to ask me to come back to work, even, STN had a huge deck of like, if and when we can come back to work, like, here's how we're going to be safe and make sure it's optional and things like that. So anywho, it's been a second. So I'm glad that we jumped back on the pod, a little mini episode here for you. I think in the sports world, definitely looking at the NBA bubble, the content coming out of it, it's great, but also I think the results coming out of it is amazing as well. And then just following these TikTok stories, the Twitter hacks, the Facebook boycott, that's affecting the social industry. I'm sure, that's one thing too, Will, that a lot of my friends that own different businesses, like, hey, we would love to participate in this boycott, but 80% of my revenue comes from Facebook ads. I can't. If you were a bigger brand like a North Face, et cetera, maybe you can. I think, did Pepsi boycott too? I think a big beverage brand boycotted as well. But, you could afford to take those stands, but, smaller companies, if they did that, they'd have to fire half their staff, which wouldn't be fair either. So you kind of have to make those stands as every company on an individual basis. So, and then Netflix is balling, and we're monitoring like everybody else. We're out here in California, so I think we're being banned by all the states, and we're the bad ones. So we'll stay put for a while here. All good. Our clients out in New York, they're doing so well. I'm like, well, even if we could visit you, it's going to be a while.
Yeah, we thought we were doing well there. We had a nice run for a couple weeks, and then it all.
I was so proud of how we moved quickly, and then we opened up too quickly.
The day the beach opened up, I knew we were in trouble.
Yeah. There is darkness, but soon there will be light. All right. This is a social podcast powered by STN Digital. Thank you much. Thank you so much to producer Will, of course. We always thank Dave Furker every single show as well. And we will be back at you with more content. What do we got coming up, Will? We got some different panels, especially in the esports arena that we're currently scheduling that I'm really excited for.
Yeah, so we have some more traditional, like regular one-to-one episodes coming out, and then we're scheduling currently for the first week of August, 1 to 2, ideally 3 panels. I know one at least will be focused on the esports world, and then we have one or two more that we haven't finalized yet. But yeah, be on the lookout for
the other one that we haven't finalized. Most famous person ever on the Business Social podcast in history.
Yeah, I could confidently say that. Yeah.
Lock that in, producer Will. Lock it in.
A good radio tease. So yeah, definitely one panel for sure on the horizon, and probably closer to 3 or 4 all throughout the month of August, with a couple mini and regular episodes on the way. So definitely a lot of content coming up.
Yeah, and if you haven't already, we did that panel series that we were super proud of with a bunch of really large people in the industry when it came to Nicole over at Pepsi, Mike at Jersey Mike's. I thought Nick was amazing, Nick Woodhouse from Authentic Brand Group, but some really good conversations that were just talking about business and pivoting and motivating staff and different things that they've kind of, especially during this crazy time. So if you guys haven't had a chance to check it out, feel free to check those things out on the podcast, on YouTube, all those things and more. All right. Thanks to you, Will. It's been another edition of the Business Social Podcast. I'm your host, David Brickley. It's been powered by STN Digital.